All right, hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? How's it going there, Sergeant? Good to see you. All right, so back in the career game, huh? And I've been working on my build. There's a flicky camera for Alistair's challenge, so that's been doing pretty well here. So we're gonna kind of play with that a little bit. We'll do some other missions. We got what's this? River barge distress, 13 grand. That's pretty good. 5 casualties to the hospital. That's a good one for us to do with my helicopter. So might have to screw around with this helicopter just a little bit because, I'm in the process of building it, so I have certain things I need to. I've been connecting, disconnecting, everything else. So let's go ahead. I just connected electricity to a part here, so I gotta make sure that I've got it on there. Okay, that is connected. All right, good. Let me add one more part. So this is gonna be my helicopter for Alistair's challenge. Has microcontrollers all over it, but it's still very usable, so we can use it. So, called the Pigeon. All right. So let's go do this rescue. It should have all the equipment in it. We'll kind of go over the helicopter real quick, all the stuff I put on recently and everything else. So I redid the gear. These coaster wheels, especially when they're on their side like this, the brakes don't really work. So I changed out the wheels. It's got new drop tanks. They don't actually drop. It's not a military thing. I'm not dropping in the air, but I've made a proof of concept for a firefighting module that we can use. So that's really good. These are fuel. This thing has an insane range. Let me see. Did I save those pictures? I don't think I did, but I essentially took it from Donk down to here, up to the Arctic and back, and it still had like half of a tank of its main tank. It burns through these drop tanks probably first. So it's got really good range. It's diesel. We'll do a quick walk around. So as part of the challenge, it's not a tilt rotor, it's just a helicopter. The rotors do tilt a little bit just to give it more realistic speed. It does like 80 knots. I redid the rescue doors in the back. Before, they were coming out the sides. It was kind of an eyesore, and also it was a pain in the ass that they were you had to close them in the doors. It didn't look very good. And they were also in the middle, and so you had to kind of walk through them. So it's much cleaner. All the rescue stuff's in the back now, so that's good. There's my hand-drawn pigeon that lights up now. And this side's pretty much the same. Let's go ahead and go in. So I'll go over these rescue doors. So we've got the bottom hatch. This is the one that I go down on. And then we have the two rescues here. And so they kind of close up nice and tidy. So very nice and tidy back there. So before, like, these were right in the middle and they're a pain. They're all in the back now, so it's much better. The seat faces me, and when I get in, it automatically rotates. Go ahead and turn on the master power. We can run on one engine if we want. All right, what's up? Something up. Okay, it's running. It's just my game sounds probably down. Yeah, my game sounds down a little bit. You know if anything gets too loud. And then we have a ground idle and flight idle. So when I park on the ground, I don't want the helicopter to inadvertently take off. Like, watch, it will take itself off. So ground idle, if we want to leave the engine running while we go do a mission, or like run off some people, say, to put them inside the hospital, we can do that. So very stable. Once you get going a certain speed, the rotors auto tilt like this so that you get some more speed. Go ahead and we'll put in a couple, say 500 feet, put in altitude, and it's going to climb up. We've got our waypoint already in there. This has station keeping. It will hover over a spot. I added some more. I'm trying to improve every time I do something, so instead of doing the same old station keeping, I've improved it. We'll go ahead and we'll hit nav now. That will start taking us towards our course. So you see we'll start to speed up here. Not ultra fast. I don't want this to be ultra fast. I have some like small VTOLs that are very, very fast. You know, so I want this to still kind of have some helicopter speeds. I want it to have some, you know, liabilities. That way, you know, it doesn't replace all my builds, you know. This thing will literally not overheat at all. I've been doing a lot of testing with that. I was having some overheating problems, and I realized that essentially I'd screwed up a number, and I was running on one of the two engines. So it can overheat. Well, it probably doesn't overheat now, but I was running on one engine, and I would run for a considerable amount of time. I could probably go from like donk down to here, and then it would start to get hot. That was because I was running on one engine, so I was running on 50% of the power. And then once I go to the second, once I have both engines on, it runs much cooler. And literally the coolant system doesn't even turn on anymore because it runs so cold. So, you know, I don't even need to turn on the coolant pumps. Let me see which one. That should be the bus. Up. Up, it just went away. What's this one? Okay, let's do this one. So that one that we were just going for expired. So if you look here, so let's look at this system that I added. So this has station keeping. So it's gonna, once it gets to the target, it's automatically going to stop, hover over the build, over the waypoint. Now, if the wind is higher than, I think I set it for 5 or 10 knots, what it's going to do is it's going to face the wind. If the wind is below 5 or 10 knots, wherever I set it, it's going to continue to face in the last direction that it was set. So it's following a bearing of 252. So because the wind's pretty calm, once we get, I think it's within point, I think I set it to 0.1, it's going to stay about at that heading. Where is it? Where's this rescue? Stand by, I gotta find out where this... It's on the road there. Do we pass it? Okay, there we go. I didn't set the... Okay, so there it is. I gotta... See, I put the waypoint off, so I gotta fix it. So, I'm gonna put it right over the top of it. So let's go ahead and we'll point at it. I think it's screwed up there. I gotta fix it. But it's using a memory register to take the last bearing, and then if it's windy, it's going to actively face the wind. So it automatically does that. It will face the wind. All right, right now it's having some problem with its last bearing. I gotta see why it's doing that, but it's actually doing all right. All right, so it's now hovering over the waypoint. If the wind was up, it would face the wind because you want it facing into the wind so that it's more easily can counteract that wind. So let's start knocking down our altitude here. I can only go in hundreds of feet here, so I can't go down. I think I'm going to add a functionality to this where I can, once you get below 100 feet, maybe I'll make it so that I can, each tap is worth 10, so that you can do more precision there. All right, so now it's hovering a little bit too close to fire. I don't want to go down into the fire, so I'm just going to take over. I could have it hover there, so I just want to show you that so that like we could do a rescue over a boat. And it would, what I'm going to do is click off nav, alt, put the AP back on, and we'll land. So I'll kind of show you why I have a ground idle and a flight idle. So you don't need the engine spun all the way up when you're landed, right? You're not actively trying to lift anything. And so what you can do is you can click off the flight idle, and you notice the RPMs come down to a lower set value. And so it will help keep your vehicle landed, but also you're going to burn less fuel. It's going to make a hell of a lot less noise because I've got a headset on this seat. Once I get out of the seat, it's gonna get louder, so it'll be very loud. Rotating seat helps with just getting in and out. We got a fire. Let's take a pick with my new build here. Should have had me running towards the fire. There we go. There we go. All right, very nice. But this challenge was just in the nick of time. At first, Alistair was talking about doing, I think, like a heavy lift helicopter. I'm kind of glad he went with rescue because, you know, now I've got a new rescue helicopter for a career. That's the underwater torch. I put it over here. I moved it. It was there. Alright, so now, because we're in ground idle, the rotors are moving much slower. It's quieter, burning less fuel. Alright, good. Alright, so there should be a hospital right up here. Right there. So I took off the autopilot because right there I asked it to climb and the blades weren't spinning up, so you could hear them slow down. It's because the blade pitch changed and they were I put load on the engine. Give it its new coordinates. I like to hand fly a lot, but you know, it's nice to have an autopilot system, especially when you're playing by yourself, that you can kind of rely on. It's doing this bucking stuff because it's kind of a cross between an airplane, a microcontroller, and a helicopter at the moment. I kind of want to change some systems in it, so it should use more collective when you're at a slower speed, and when you get a higher speed, it should pitch more. That's why you can see the speed decreasing and then increasing. So it's using both pitch and collective to do it, where a plane would pitch more or a helicopter at high speed would pitch more. So that's why it's kind of doing this. And then once it gets to its altitude, which is 1,000, it's going to level off. And the benefit of this is, you know, in game, if you didn't know, you know, if you don't tilt the rotors a little bit, they still will pitch. The rotor disc will pitch like it would IRL, but the problem is not going to pitch enough, and you have to push the nose down like 20 degrees. And so especially in this craft, if I pitch the nose down 20 degrees, we'd be looking like this the whole time, going straight. So you'd be looking through the overhead panel. So a little bit of tilt there, it levels the deck out. How's it going there? Lass, how are you? Would be cool to have radar target hold for drifting boats to hold out. Yeah, that's just, that'd be cool, but that's something I could think about. How's it going there, Rowan? How's it going there, Alistair? He's sneak peeking the challenge build. I like the otter. I've been watching the otter. I think, where's the helipad? I think the helipad's right there. Let's start going down. It's kind of, what's the wind at? Let me check the wind real quick. See how it's kind of round steering around things? I don't know what's up with that. Yeah, it's going away from the point. I don't know what it's doing. I was working on this in the hotel the other day, so something's up. I gotta fix. Because it should be steering over to that helipad. What it could be is, no, it's not that. Did I enter it in the keypad? I did. Okay, let's try something. I don't know why it's steering away. This was working fine the other day. I just put it on my PC too, so. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I gotta fix it. I'm gonna kick the autopilot here. I'm gonna go down. I'll hand fly it a little bit. I had this working perfectly. I don't know what's up. I gotta look at some. The other, you know what it very well could be is electrical problem, because I don't have you know, if I tested it with infinite electricity and then, you know, I've got infinite electricity off in my career game, so it could be some component is not getting electricity. So I got to check it. Because I had to convert an old autopilot for this, and I also have a new autopilot panel, so I had to convert that to the new panel, and I had to convert what was a plane's... No, was it a plane? It was either a plane or a VTOL. I think it was a VTOL's autopilot to a helicopter, so I'm trying to come up with some new kind of module or master panels so that, you know, instead of having to rewrite everything for, you know, each time I use it, you know, helicopter or whatnot, it's, you know, I have the same panel and just, I can go ahead and just quickly put it together. Got some work on this autopilot panel. That can be worked, this panel here, that's green rather, the Lua. That can be worked separately and then put right back in, because all I literally do is disconnect the connections, put in the new Lua panel, or even copy in the new Lua code, and it's good. So, all right, so there's we're here. Let's go ahead and pump another health kit into them if they need it. There's a dog. Hello, dog. Yeah, I gotta figure out why it didn't want to go to the right spot. Alright, good. Get out of there. This thing is ultra fuel efficient. It has those 4 drop tanks. Each tank has like 600 something liters in it. And then we have, I think, 3,000 pounds, which is about 1,400 liters in the main tank. And it's got insane range. And then I made some drop tanks that can do firefighting. I have to, you know, work on them some more. But and then I have the Pigeon logo lights up now. Go back to flight idle. Alright, let's go ahead and see what we want to do next. This is a bus transpo mission. It could be kind of fun, but I have no place to spawn it. Okay, the engine just went up to full thrust, and I want to make sure something bad wasn't happening. Brains could be interesting to buy at some point. We don't have a ton of money yet, so I don't want to screw around with that too much. What's that? That's still the shark cage. We're pumping oil at the moment. That's auto. That's going to turn that into diesel and jet. Let's go back up to... let's go back up to dock here. Alright, so let's go ahead. Let's go up to like 700, 800 feet, something like that. Let's go ahead and put that in, and here we go. So I had this work, and I got to figure out what if I didn't save it or if I screwed something up. But essentially, if you notice, the bearing panel, when I put in a GPS coordinate, it's going to tell me the bearing, the heading to go to the point. And so the heading right now is the heading of 337 to go to the point, and as you can see, it's on the compass. So what it will do is it will tell the autopilot, hey, the waypoint is at 337. Now the problem is, and this is how I do it in my airplanes. In my airplanes, you want it to circle because the airplane can't hover. And so when it gets to that waypoint, it will naturally just circle around the waypoint. So I can go AFK, I can go get a drink, I can go to the bathroom, do whatever, and it will automatically circle the waypoint that I sent it to. And that's very convenient. And then I can come back and I can click off the nav mode and I can fly it down, right? With the helicopter, you can, when you get close to the waypoint, there's no point in circling. You could circle if you wanted, but it's better to stop and hover. And so what it will do is, if you notice, the rotors, they tilt based on speed. So the faster we go, they'll start to tilt forward and help us. And it's very natural. So you just pretty much, you tilt your tail back like you would on a normal helicopter to slow down. The rotors will start to tilt up vertical. As long as you're going pretty slow, the rotors are tilted vertical. As soon as you tilt your nose down to go faster, the rotors will tilt forward and help you go faster. And so it's very natural. It behaves well. But, you know, you want to be able to stop. So the problem I initially was having was when it gets to the waypoint, we're still going fast. The rotors still want to be tilted forward. So what ended up doing was when you get within a certain amount of the waypoint, it will straighten up those rotors. That will have you slow down, so by the time you get to the waypoint, you'll be stopped. And then when you get within a certain distance, I think it was like 0.1 of the waypoint, it will lock in the last heading because it's called homing. So let me see if I can show you homing. I'll take a picture of the map. That will be good to kind of show you kind of theory behind homing. So something in this essentially kind of works like an ADF. Yeah, it kind of works like an ADF in an airplane. They don't really use ADFs anymore. It's kind of an old school method of navigation. So I'm kind of trying to get rid of homing and doing course following. But let's go ahead and do there we go. So here's our here's where we're at. So let's say we're starting. That's fine. Let's do. Say we're starting here. Just say up at points or something. All right, let's say we're starting here, okay? And we want to go to here. All right, so we're going from here to here. And so ideally, right, we want to go in a straight line to this point. So if we drew a line from here to here, that is our bearing. That's the bearing we're going to go to the course. Now, let's say there's no wind, right? So we set a bearing, and that bearing is a heading, right? So if we say that, this is 360, that is 270, 90, and 180 in the compass, right? You look at that and you say, okay, that's probably maybe, I don't know, 300. So that would be a 300 heading to go there. So that would be your bearing, 300. Okay, now the issue becomes, you're not out here by yourself. You've got some wind. And so the problem with the wind is coming in at, say, this direction. All right, now, if you're on a bearing, right, you set that bearing, you set your heading at 300, but the wind is coming almost a complete crosswind. What's going to happen is you're going to draw a circle. Let's see what color we want the circle. Let's circle in that color. And so you go to the center there. It's a square. All right, so here's your circle. So you draw a circle from one side to the other, right? And it's going to trace an arc course. Circle's actually not the best way to do it, but here, let's do that. Let's go here. We're doing arc line. So if your goal is to go on this course, the problem is what's going to happen is you're going to do what's called homing. Because the wind is blowing you, your course isn't going to look like that straight line anymore. It's going to look like an arc. And so the wind is blowing you away, and you keep turning toward that goal like this. You're going to go in an arc like this, and that's called homing. And so what you do IRL, let me just check, make sure I'm on course still. All right, we're looking good. So what you do IRL is you've got a course correction for the wind. And so we used to have to do this manually when we were learning to fly instruments was if you knew the wind was from your right, and so what you'd look is you'd look at your bearing, and now instead of your bearing saying 300, it would go 301, 302, 303, meaning you're being pushed to the right and you need to turn more, or you're being pushed to the left, you need to turn more to the right to correct. And so the airplane would actually look something like this as it was flying, right? The wings would, that's a good airplane. So the airplane would look like this. All right, so you actually turn the airplane a little bit into the wind, and it's called your crab angle, and you're crabbing across like this toward the target. So your airplane's like this now with a crab angle, right? What the fuck is going on, Mike? Oh, because it's fixed size, that's why, okay. And so your airplane's going to fly with the crab angle in because you're facing somewhat in the wind. It's going to stay on course. And if you don't do that, it's going to home because you're going to have to keep turning. So you're going to initially start on a 300 heading like this, and it's going to blow you away. And what are you going to do? You're going to turn back towards the point. And it's going to blow you away, and you're going to have to turn towards the point until you find... And now you're south of your course, or west of your course, southwest of your course, and you have to keep turning. So this is what homing looks like. So eventually I want to get rid of homing, and the way you fix that is you look at the wind indicator on the top, and if you look at the wind indicator, it's facing forward because of how fast we're going forward, so it's kind of hard to do in game. But we could do it with GPS, where it's essentially accounting for the correction of the wind. And what that would do is that would automatically put in your wind correction angle. This is what modern aircraft do to prevent you from homing, so you stay on course. Because you imagine what would happen IRL is, let's say there's a mountain here, right? And you wouldn't want to fly into the mountain, so you need to be able to navigate reliably with either areas you just can't be in. So like say there was a mountain range right here, and if you fly this course, you go between the mountains, right? If you home, you're going to hit the mountains. So it's very important that you get some sort of course correction in there. Let me read some chat. I think, let me look at our time actually, see how quickly we get in there. We're going to be in there for 4 minutes, so I got some time. Now, let me catch up on chat. Yeah, this is my challenge, Helly. Rowan. How's it going there, Rowan? I said hi to you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it turned out well. The only area that I'm not thrilled with necessarily is, like, I like the profile look of the nose. This view I'm not crazy about, but I really don't want it getting any fatter, because especially it's going to be landing on my ships. I kind of like it narrow, giggity, but the rest of it I like. I like the tail. I like the big muscular engines on top. I like the nacelle shaping. This thing is insanely fuel efficient. So like I've got the fuel in pounds. It's 2,700 pounds. So quick math, just divide that by 2. So you're pretty much at say 1,400 liters in that gauge. And what it's going to do is it can drain from the wing tanks, I think, first. I got to double check, make sure it's actually draining from the wing tanks, all right? It's actually not draining from the wing tanks. This thing's got insane fuel because I just thought I didn't put a pump in there. So it's not draining from the wing tanks. I got to do that. I still haven't done that yet. But this thing's going to have insane fuel efficiency. But most of the diesel stuff in game you can run really well. It's doing 1,000 RPM, which is 16 RPS. So it's doing 16 RPS, so it's pretty low on RPS, and that makes it really fuel efficient. All right, we'll start coming down. Well, like here, let's do this. Let's go ahead and we'll put on map vehicles on there, and you can see it's doing exactly what I was talking about. You know, the little bit of homing there. What? Okay, that's my oil. So we went from here to here. And so if the wind was really strong, it would home it, because what it's doing is it's not accounting for that wind angle. So I have to fix or come up with a system for that. Let's see what the wind is at right now. So if you look, see where the wind is? The wind's actually where I put it in my example. It's from our right. So we expect to be a little bit west of course when we come in here. Visibility is pretty terrible right now. But we'll be there in a minute 9. Or, it's not minute 9, 1.9 minutes. I'm glad you like the look. Thank you, Rowan. No, it was set. It never reads the north signal. It reads the keypad at all times. I took. It actually maybe it did go to that, but I put in the keypad, so it should have stayed. As long as the keypad has an active number in it, it was whatever the bearing is showing. The bearing was showing, I think, correctly. I see what you're saying though there, last. All right, 1.1 away. 200 feet should do it. Famous last words. Let's go up to 300 feet just to make sure we don't hit anything because there is a mountain. I want to see if the stop function works properly. I had it working perfectly. I had it working perfectly in 100% wind where it would go to the target. It would stop at the target. It would face the wind so that it's stable, and then you could do the rescue while facing the wind. It will automatically turn itself to always face the wind while you're station keeping. So we're 0.5 away. 0.4. There is, that looks like Komodo over there. You can see the lights of Komodo. Alright, we're coming over the rocks here. This should start to slow down once we hit, I think I set it to 0.1. You see it already slowing down. It's already told, no, 0.5. You see where I put the waypoint? Oh, okay, I put the waypoint over here. Nope, it's over there. Something's up. I gotta figure out what's up. Let's see if it goes right to where it's supposed to be going. I don't know why it's off course this much. Like, it was dead perfect. Like, I literally I had it within, like, inches of where it's supposed to be going. It's got to be with the memory register. I was having problems with the memory register. It's doing all right. I don't know why it's overshooting, why it wasn't pointing at the course. It could have been it was coming in so fast that, I gotta look, maybe I set it to a mile. If I set it to a mile, what it's gonna do is okay, so see what it just did there? See how it turned to the right? Okay, so the wind is not strong enough. See how the wind indicator is now pointing at like a 45 right? I'll kick the wind up. When the wind gets stronger, it will turn towards the wind. So let me see where it's at now. All right, so the wind's pretty low, so when I turn the wind up, what it's going to do is say, hey, and the reason for this is you want it to face in its strongest direction towards the wind, so you want the nose going to the wind. In-game, it doesn't really do this. It doesn't weather vane. A real airplane would weather vane towards the wind. That actually does weather vane and wind in the game. But what it's going to do is with the wind at that almost, you know, like 60 degrees to our right now, if I turn the wind up, the system's going to say, hey, it's windy, turn into the wind. So let's do that. All right, so we hit 43% wind and see what it did? It's now facing the wind. All right, so it's going to face the wind, and this allows us to easily do a rescue where I go up and down the lines and it stays facing the wind. And as far as Alistair's challenge, it requires 100% wind. So this has to be able to withstand 100% wind. As you see, with 100% wind, it's going to face the wind the whole time. And it hovers over the waypoint. If you look where it is, it's about the second dash down the runway right there. So if you look, we're right over the waypoint. And it's going to stay there. And this allows me to do a rescue. So I'll quickly show you like a rescue here. Let's go down to 100 feet, make it quicker. All right, so see it's facing the wind here. Now, if I move the wind, watch, it's going to be hard. You got to see it through here, but watch if I move the wind. So I start to move the wind, it will turn and face the wind the whole time. So as I turn the wind, it's going to face the wind. And the benefit of this is when I get out to do a rescue, Alright, so this is going to be part of the instructions if Alistair is still watching. This is important for the instructions. You see people trying to do this all the time, jump in the hole while they're in the harness. The easiest thing to do is lower the harness down so that it's in the hole, then jump in the harness, and then go down. Once the winches get to about 5 meters, you'll notice they start to speed up in how fast they go down. And that's to prevent, like, when you're bringing people up, you don't want the people smashing into the body of your build. So see the cables are going down faster now. Once they get closer to the body of the craft, they'll slow back down so that you don't inadvertently cause damage. And so this one of the benefits of this is, again, like I talked about before, I don't like making it so, you know, I have to throw away my old builds. They're just like, they have no use anymore. Now, that's going to happen where, of course, you know, some builds just aren't as good anymore. But I don't really like that too much, so what I'd rather do is have them have some benefits and some drawbacks. And so, like, the benefit of this one is this is my first rescue aircraft that has 3 harnesses. Usually I do 2. I do 1 for me to ride and 1 for a rescue to ride. This one has 2 for the rescues to ride. So it's got the port harness, and it's got the starboard harness, and it's got my center harness that I control it from. So I can go get 2 people, rescue them, put them in the harnesses, then I get in, and we all go up. And so we all ride up together. I put them in their seats, I, you know, feed them health packs, whatever, and I can do more rescues more quickly because there's 3 of us, or 2 of them and 1 of me. Yeah, the update on the what Alistair's talking about there is they made it so you could change the speed, and so like what this does is if I'm going up, it's if I'm going up, it's a positive number, and you can set it from 0 to 10. And that's what it's doing. So they're set to 10, and then as I get within 5, it slows it down. All right, so I come up through the bottom. All right, now I'm here. I can either push this button here, or I can press 6 on my harness, which is the hatch. The door is now closed below me, so I can just press F and get out, and I can walk on the door. And these are pretty snazzy, so I came up with these the other day. They're all the way up. I have to now press the down button to shut the winches off, and they'll grab. And now that they're grabbed, they fold inside beautifully. Every time. And they stow up very nicely. But as you can see, with 100% wind, no problem. We can do our rescues here. Override wind direction, override weather's off. All right, good. What am I doing there? Escape. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll shut off nav, and we'll shut off altitude hold. The autopilot button turns on the auto hover, so that's just kind of a, you know, it gives you the stability setting if you want it. All right, we're gonna put it down, and then we're gonna taxi in. So, all right, autopilot's coming off, and ground idle is coming on. That's flight idle, so if you have that switch off, you're in ground idle. And what you notice is the RPS comes down. So the benefits of this is, like I said, it's quieter, but also you'll notice it can't take off anymore. It doesn't have the power to take off anymore, but it has the power that I can taxi. I have the parking brake on, so let's shut the parking brake off. So this allows me to taxi now. And I can taxi around. I need to increase the ground idle a little bit to make taxiing better, but you can see I can taxi it around. And you taxi like you would with a regular helicopter. You're using the pitch component of the rotors to get taxiing. It also has a nose wheel. It's a little bit slow because the ground idle is just too low. So that's how you would taxi a helicopter IRL if it had wheels. Is you're essentially just tilting with the rotors. Now the other one they do is they do what's called hover taxis, and hover taxis are you just go above the ground, and you just do what most people do is they just kind of taxi a little bit off the ground like this and go in to where they're going. But that's the difference between that. I need to make ground idle a little bit higher so that I can actually taxi, because once I get to the hill I couldn't taxi anymore. But it's convenient to have that ground idle so you're not doing this, because see, it wants to take off, and so like what a lot of us will do is trim down. Now you got to remember the trim's down. Well, if you put it in ground idle, watch what happens when the rotors slow down. it can't take off anymore, so it just stays on the ground. I could put something on for ground idle where it added some down collective, but I don't know if I want to do that. All right, so temp, all that driving around. This thing will not overheat with both engines running. Oh, thank you much there, Rowan. Welcome to Captain's Crew. Let me go ahead and take a screenshot of that, and you can go check in the Discord in the recognition section. So, Rowan is the latest member of Captain's Crew. Appreciate it, Rowan. Let's go do that real quick. Oh, I didn't put the stream ping out for my video either. There we go. Let's do that. Yeah, very good. All right, so yeah, we've been driving around for a while here, and this thing will not overheat at all. Like literally, the radiators do not turn on if both engines are on. This is designed where it can run with one engine, so you can shut off the right engine, and you see the RPM comes down. It disconnects the engine from the common torque shaft. So if you look, you can't see it in here. I'll show you in the editor. It has a common torque shaft that allows the two rotors to be run by either engine or both. And so with that common torque shaft, we can go ahead and put it back in flight idle. And we can run this in one engine. And so why would you do this? Okay, let's say you're doing a rescue and you want to save some fuel. You can shut off an engine and you can go do a rescue. And you're saving fuel. But at the cost of, you're going to burn more heat, because you notice this one's dropping in temperature because it's effectively off, not doing any work, right? And the other one is doing all the work. I don't know quite yet if it will. Not sure yet if. What was I going to say? Not sure if this one will overheat yet with just one engine running. I worked on the cooling system, so I got to look. But okay, I changed the gear ratio, and now I can't work it with one engine, so I gotta go back to the old gear ratio. But let's go ahead and we'll shut down, because I want it to run with one engine. That's how Night Owl works, is it runs with one engine. All right, so I gotta go back on that gear ratio and see what that needs to be. Oh, you got the notification? Yeah, I think that might be the YouTube notification. I'm not sure how it's working there, Sergeant. Yeah, so let's see. I don't want to work on too many of the problems of this. I'll do a workshop episode trying to fix some of these systems. Let me, sorry, I'm coughing on the mic here. I gotta get some more water in a second. I'm gonna put down some notes for what I need to work on. I also like that this is called the Pigeon, and it's kind of more brutal looking. Let's work on station keeping. All right, station keeping, we want to test that out. We want to, let's see, increase ground idle. We want to do change gear ratio back. And so the reason was, this thing used to be able to take off with one engine and fly with one engine, and now it's too weak, and the likelihood is because yeah, see, it's a 3152, so that's a 15 divided by 2, which is 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. And so that's too high. That's just too high for it to be able to run on one engine. Because I think these are 16s at this point, 16 cylinders. And so, you know, you're running on half power, and that's just too much gear ratio. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably go back to what I had it on. I think they were 6-to-1s. So let's go back to 6-to-1s. And then this one here is working as my rotor brake. I I've asked for this from the devs. I would love them to add a brake block, and so the way I would kind of like them to do the brake block is essentially you would do, like, just all they would have to do is reskin something like this. It could be anything with an RPS node on it, and you'd call it the brake block, and you, instead of feeding it an electrical number, electrical or anything else, or a number here, you would just feed it a number that would be variable brake, and this would allow you to add more braking to anything you want. You just have to hook it to an RPS pipe, and that would, because it's small, we could put it anywhere. So like what a lot of us do for our rotor brakes is we add a wheel, and I had one in here and then took it out because I can't connect to it anymore because of the winches. And so it used to be back in here, and essentially you put your wheel in here and you run a pipe to the wheel, and then this would spin the wheel while you were operating. You could put a clutch in there if you wanted, but then when you you can go variable brake, and you can actually slow down the rotors and brake the rotors. What I do is it's a little bit less of a, it's a little bit more, it's not even abrupt. What it does is it goes -1 on this one gearbox here, and so if this rotor's turning clockwise and this one's turning clockwise, when you click the rotor brake, it will try to turn this one counterclockwise, which adds a braking force on, and they both will slow down, and then they will stop. But the problem is there's no actual brake force on it, so they'll, for a second, start going backwards. And I don't really like that, but it's a pretty minor complaint. I do have one little pet peeve that's annoying me, is when I stow the rotors, one's facing forward, one's facing backwards. And what I was almost thinking of doing, which is complicated and a pain in the ass, is essentially you would turn this rotor backwards, and then you would invert all the controls to this one rotor to then make it so that they both stow backwards. So I think that's a little bit annoying. The other thing, and then I was like, oh, you know what, instead of stowing backwards, they might stow inward. And I'm like, then I have to convert all the numbers on this. And you really don't have to convert the numbers. What you'd do is you'd face the pitch component to the right, and now your roll is pitch. But it's like, I'm like, do I want to go through all that nonsense just for the rare time that I go and stow my rotors? If you don't even know what I'm talking about, this is what I mean. So you stow the rotors, and this one's going to go forward, and as far as I'm concerned, it kind of looks goofy. I'd like them both to stow in the same direction, so I'd have to rotate the rotor. We'll see if I get that obnoxious as a person to feel like I need to do that. All right, let's go ahead and... All right, so I made those changes. I don't want to do too many changes, but... Again, we're doing a career game, not that. So where it used to go was the pipe used to come through here, and if you look, I absolutely hate this pipe look here on these winches. So I usually just hide them with transponders. So if you notice, like, I've got some junk all over the place like that, that's what that's doing, is hiding from those. All right, so we'll save this up. I'm not going to do a ton of work on this. I'm going to go grab a quick drink. All right, good. Oh, let's go over a couple more features. This will be kind of fun. So if you look at this here, you're going to walk up and, oh my God, how do we do ground power and fuel? You have a service door. So you open up your service door, you've got an electrical cable anchor, and you have a fluid hose. You know, you put your diesel in here, and you put your electrical cable in there. Now, for most aircraft, when you plug the plug in, it doesn't just power up systems. You have to enable ground power. So you have a button here, and you also have one in the cockpit right there. And that allows you to either connect or disconnect ground power. So this happens in, like, the plane that I fly. You know, we can disconnect ground power and go on our power. When we're shutting down for the night, we disconnect ground power. And then this has the battery voltage, so you can see it has the volts. It will show you if it's low fuel. It will show you how much fuel is in the main tank. I want to do a quick test here, and then you can enable ground power, and that hides away. So these, I put it on the top like an idiot. I always like to put the the liquid meter on the bottom, so you can just come up and you can just do a page up on it, but I didn't. I think they're about, I think it's 600 liters. Let me check it. I think there's 600 up there. I just saw it. There's 600 liters in each. And then there's 1,400 liters in here. So I can't do the test right now, but what I was going to do is test to see if we're actually sucking fuel out of there. They are pressurized, so it's pushing some fuel into the tanks. Because the fuel inside here is pressurized, but not for long. And there's no fluid vent. There's no air vent in these tanks. So these have pressure, but the air can also go through. I could keep these air pressurized, and the way we could do that is, essentially you could do it without pumps. You could pump it with air, and the way you would do that's real simple. You would put in a pipe like that, and then you would do a liquid relief valve, and then you do a fluid port. And that would, now there's high air pressure in here, and this has an air vent in the main tank right here. So what's going to happen is the high air pressure in the main tank is going to blow out of here, and you're going to be at ambient inside the main fuel tank. And these tanks are going to be high pressure. And so what's going to happen is the high air pressure is going to push the fuel into the main tank. So as you burn the fuel from the main tank, it's automatically going to, the air is going to push the fuel into the main tank, so you don't need a pump. So that's one way we could do it. Let me put a list thing on there. So let's do drop tanks, air pressure. Okay. So that should work. What we'll do is this. Which one did I do it on? This one? Okay, I did on this one. And I saved this, right? Yeah, I saved it. Okay. And eventually what I'm going to do is the templates here, they'll line up in the correct positions with the helicopter. So you can, the helicopter will spawn in by itself, and you'll be able to spawn in each template or each set of underwing modules that you want to operate with. So, and they'll already be in position. So what we'll do here is I can demonstrate this. So where are we at here? Let's see. All right, that's the liquid meter here. What we'll do, we'll decrease the width by 1. And then we'll grab the liquid meter. And we'll put it here. That way, from the ground, I can just look at it. Eventually, I might make it so that you can read the drop tank level in the helicopter. But with the system, the way it currently works is the drop tanks should push their fuel into the main tank, and then you read the main tank. So the whole time you're flying, the main tank will keep showing full the whole time until the drop tanks are empty. then the main tank will start to drain, and then you're like, okay, the drop tanks are empty. I now only have the main tank left, and you know where your fuel's at. Hello, Rasmus. All right, let's do this. Okay, the other thing we'll add here, so here's my diesel spawner. I'm just going to do this so you can kind of... is there a pressure node on that? I think there is. Liquid level. No. So I can do a real quick show of this. Try to do this here. I'll do a demonstration of what I mean by using air pressure. This is why, like, when people say the pressure update sucked, it's like, you are not using it to its full potential. Like, it may have ruined some things you like, and I get that, but there's also an absolute ton of cool stuff you can do because of the pressure update that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. I'm just going to stick a barometer up here. And then I'm going to add a dial. Put it right there. I should not be doing this in my career game. We will save, and we will revert the save before we play with this. All right. This is gonna get messy. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll save this. Let this autosave real fast. All right. All right. Seeing as we are in the career game, it's actually, let's do this. I save this. There's no point in then reverting the save. Let's go ahead and load custom. I gotta go get a drink. I will be right back. Alrighty. Yeah, real pressure is a lot easier than simulating the logic, like Rasmus was saying. Like, doing, like, I do air brakes, I do simulated hydraulic systems, and it's so easy in game, and it's like, it's a really cool feature they added, but, like, people aren't thinking about that. And part of it is it's the contingent of the player base who watch some dude who just sinks boats for a living, and all they want to do is herder, sink boat, and I get that. That's fine if that's how they like to play, but kind of the point's it's an engineering game, you know, and so, like, you know, it's not necessarily the intended point. Why is this? Did I hook that up? It should be pressure. Oh, it's not. It's not tanks. It's not pressurized. Okay, that's fine. I've got something I'll show you. Okay, so it's showing 1 atmosphere in there. I'm gonna do something to this. It'll be kind of cool, but let's see. Oh, that's why the fucking bottom's out. What happened there? What happened here? I can't remember how many it's got to be. One more. I also deleted something out by accident here. Yeah, with this this here. Can't go there, but can go somewhere else though. Want to put it right there though. That's the problem. That's gonna hit everywhere except there. And then I gotta split it. That's annoying. Sucker. Let's do this. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to eventually put scoops on these, and what will happen is as it travels, it will naturally blow, you know, as the helicopter's flying forward, it will pressurize the tank. And then that will help to get the fuel out, which is kind of cool. All right, that's good. This is going to go on the nose now. All right, so that's good, and then we need to fix the way the direction. God damn it, this is like a pain in the balls now. It really is. What's this? This a 1 by? That's a 2. Of course it is. Becoming annoying trying to find good spots for these and keep it looking the way I want it to look. Don't know if it can fit here in the end. Nope, fits. All right. That works. All right. All right, good. This gets a fluid port on there. All right, so let's check the pressure on this now. This should be pressurized now. All right, so see how it's pressurized 25 atmospheres? A lot of people complained about this, like, why are the devs pressurizing the fuel tanks? Because you got new players who don't know that you have to ventilate your tanks. They draw vacuum, and their engine dies. And so I think the devs thought, you know what, there's a strong corollary between the people who don't know or care to figure this out, even though they've told them times and time again that they have to ventilate their tanks. So those people are probably playing for like 20 minutes and then shutting the game off. If we pressurize the tanks, there'll be enough pressure in there for 20 minutes, an hour, whatever, and they'll be fine. You know, and it's a way to make it easier. 645 is how much quantity is in there. So it's pressurized to 25 liters. So if we go ahead and open a valve, you can see it pushing out 12, 11 liters per second of fuel as the pressure drops down. All right. And if you look, we are losing liquid blowing out the back. And so that's simulating going into our main tank. Right? And really all we need is we need the pressure to stay above whatever it is in the main tank in order for that to work. Because I put on a liquid relief valve on the fuel line. So the fuel does not let any air out. Only fuel is coming out. So the air is staying in the tank, but we're losing the liquid's pressure. So the air never goes into the main tank. Just the fuel. And so as long as the pressure of the main tank is at 1 atmosphere. The pressure of this tank is at 2 atmospheres. So the fuel is always going to try to go to that main tank until they equalize to 1 atmosphere. And so as like if you look, I'm going to see if I need to put scoops on this or not. I'm actually leaning towards not now because if you look, we've already lost half the fuel. And so the simulation here is saying, hey, it's going into the main fuel tank. All right, and here, let's do we'll do a better simulation later. But as long as the pressure in this tank remains greater than 1, the fuel will prefer to go from this tank into the main tank. And so I want this tank to run completely dry. And so that's pretty much the story. As long as this one stays greater than 1 atmosphere, the fuel is always going to get pressurized and push out of here without any need of a pump. And it's going at 78 liters per second, so it's moving pretty fast. So 70, let's say 70 average, so we're talking 218. So it's going to take us about 3 minutes for this fuel to completely leave this tank. And so this is a really quick and easy and cool way to be able to not need a pump, right? It's a way to reduce cost. It's a way to reduce an electrical connection. It's a way to reduce the added complexity and size of your build. And this is where a lot of people who who poo-poo the pressure update, they don't think of all these cool things you can do. Like, they do this in real life. What they'll do is they'll do this. I don't know if we can do it. We might be able to do it in here. So here, let's see if I can find a place to put it. Right here is ideal. So let's do this. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting a T-junction and a scoop. All right. So the scoop works by as you're moving forward, air goes into the scoop, right? And so let me cut the fuel down to like 50%. All right. So if we look at the pressure here, it's at 2 atmospheres because we have less. Oh shit, that's not gonna work. All right, stand by. That's blowing fuel out of there. I gotta change it. All right, we're gonna take a gas relief valve this time. All this is a filter that only allows gases, and that's all it is. All right, and then what we're going to do is put a scoop on. And a scoop will accelerate air. Well, the air can accelerate through. All right, so now we're at 2 atmospheres because I've decreased the liquid level. And now let's kick the wind up. And the wind's coming from where? North? Trying to see if it's coming east or west here. Okay, it's coming the right direction. See, it's coming towards us. So sometimes if you're inside the hangar, it doesn't affect you. But okay, so you can see we're getting some air pressure. Should be moving. And so kind of the thought with this is as you're traveling forward in the helicopter, it keeps pressurizing your tank. But we don't really even need to do that. What's up here? Did I break something? I must have. But that's the other thing you can do. They do this in real life where you pressurize your fuel tanks. So as you're moving, you're pushing air in your fuel tanks to keep a positive pressure on your fuel. So this is stuff they do IRL. So that's another thing that we could do, but we don't really need to. And then the other thing too is We do have a pump that will suck fuel out of these tanks in the helicopter. It's the engine pump. And so this is kind of the way this works in my system here is because these tanks will remain at a pressure greater than the main tank, these drop tanks, the engine-driven fuel pumps will prefer to take the fuel out of these drop pods first because they're at a higher pressure. And so as soon as these drop tanks are empty, then we start taking from the main tank. And so instead of me having to count up the fuel quantity in these tanks, I know that as soon as my main tank starts to go down, that I have lost, in this case, if I have 4 tanks, I've lost 2,400 liters. I've already used 2,400 liters of diesel. If I had 2 tanks, I'd already have used 1,200 liters of diesel. And now all I have left is my main tank. And so I don't even have to look at my fuel, really, until I get to the main tank. That's kind of the point. All right, let's paint this, and I'll save this. And then we'll go back to... I don't want this to turn into a workshop episode. We're going to keep doing career. But I want to kind of show you guys that system and kind of my thoughts on that. I wanted to get a new template made to try to help me out on that. Barometer I don't need. That was just put in there for showing you guys that as long as that's at a higher pressure than the main tank, then we will, it will prefer and drain these first. Let's do this. I got one more couple things to delete. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun challenge, and it's right up, kind of right up the what I need right now as far as you know, doing career build and have a new career vehicle. Have a loader to swap out modules. Yeah, I've got that skid steer. That could be cool too. I like to do it both ways. So like I've done it before where I put modules on things. The other thing is sometimes it becomes tedious. Like you just want to get going. So it's good to have both where you could load it if you want. And if you don't, like sometimes, like the picture of this episode, I'll bring up the picture. You can see me using my tug to pull it out of the hangar, right? Sometimes you want to use a tug to pull it out of the hangar. Sometimes you don't. I wouldn't say never there, Sergeant. That's been a long-awaited feature. Let's actually go on this real quick here. Let's do this. I haven't really talked about it, so it'll be good to talk about it here. Let's go to the announcement for the new game. Yeah, let's go to the announcement for the new game. I haven't talked about it yet, so I think it'll be good to talk about it. Where the hell is it? There it is. Game updates. All right. So they've got the announcement for the new game, and I think I'm working. 28? No, that's tomorrow. So the new so I think I'll try to stream. We'll see. I don't know. Might be busy tomorrow. But let's go ahead and we'll talk about the new game here because the stream for it is tomorrow. All right, so this is the new game announcement Q&A event. It is tomorrow, Saturday, February 28th, 2026 at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or 1800 Zulu. Dear Stormworkers, on Saturday we're announcing a new game showing the trailer, answering your questions, and playing live. So that's going to be cool. It'll be cool to see them playing the game. That will give us, again, they're answering questions, showing the trailer, and playing live. It's just not a trailer showing, answer our questions, and playing live is going to demonstrate how to play the game. Great. I think that's great. Set the reminder if you like. This is the biggest announcement we will have ever made. We've been working on this new game for 5 years, so there's a lot to discuss. So one thing I kind of like, where some people have some issues. Oh, you're going to stream it? That's good. Maybe I'll join your stream and just watch. What time is it? Yeah, 1 p.m. Yeah, it's a couple hours. If you want, we could do something together if I'm around, Alistair. That could work too. um, let's see. We've been working on this new game for 5 years, so I was kind of talking about the background context. I won't get into too much drama llama and do too much nonsense talk, but you get a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, the devs are lazy. Oh, this is what a weak update this has been." For the last 5 years, they've been working on two games. They've been working on Stormworks, and they've been working on this new game. And so you kind of have to understand that sometimes, right? Imagine working on your own builds. Okay, so say you have two builds you're working on, right? I'm working on my helicopter and I'm working on something else, right? And I've got Alistair's challenge, and Alistair's challenge has a deadline, right? When the deadline comes closer, what do I need to work on? I need to stop working on the other build and I need to focus on my challenge build. And that's how it works in real life, too, right? And then, the devs have talked about they don't have a full-time, or they didn't at the time at least, have a full-time art person doing artwork for the games. Well, guess what? Sometimes you do contracts for that. So let's say you do a 6-month contract for an artist for your game. Okay? So if they're not doing anything today and you don't have any work for them, you might say, hey, you're not doing anything today on new game. Can you go do some art for Stormworks? Okay. And so that day they work on some art for Stormworks. Then the next day they say, hey, we got some new stuff for the new game. Can you go back and work on the new game? So the next day they work on new game. And then, so they're working on new game, and that new asset for Stormworks is not getting touched because the new game needs to be worked on. And then they get another day where they don't have anything for that artist who's on a contract. So what do they say? Go back and work on that thing for Stormworks for 2 days. They finish that thing and they say, okay, go back and work on new game. And they know that they only have that artist for 6 months. Well, of course they need to work on all the assets for the new game, or what do they have to do? Extend the contract and spend more money, right? So it's a pretty logical business things that people here who just say herder, this update sucks. Well, you understand, well, at certain times they're going to have to put more assets to one game or the other because of things like they have contracts with talent, they have deadlines, all of these things, right? So that's interesting. They've been working for it for 5 years. So next time you think about why they've done some of the things, why some months were weak on updates, why some weeks were just announcements, for 5 years they've been working on this. And so it very well could have been something where they got that artist in and they needed them to work on the new game, and so Stormworks didn't get, that attention. If you haven't seen our previous announcements for the new game, here's a summary. The game isn't going to be Stormworks 2. This one, people are having reading comprehensions for forever. They've literally called it not Stormworks 2 because people kept saying it's going to be Stormworks 2. And they keep literally... And then because people thought Stormworks 2 was coming, they said, oh, the devs are going to abandon Stormworks 1. And so that's why I think they really said it's not going to be Stormworks 2. And so this was a great line. This game isn't going to be Stormworks 2 while being inspired by Stormworks and the community's feedback. This is a very different game and does not replace Stormworks. That's why they were so adamant and why they called it not Stormworks 2. Because when you... And there's literally somebody in Reddit, I had to post a picture and say what, because they were like... Somebody asked, hey, should I get Stormworks? And the guy's like, oh, no, hold off. The new game's getting announced this week. Or he said Stormworks 2 is getting announced this week. I would just hold off for that. And that's why the devs were telling everybody it's not Stormworks 2. Because they're afraid of oh, would you buy a game that when the new one comes out in a month? Probably not. You'd wait, right, and buy the new game. And so when they tell you, no, it's a completely different game, you can buy both if you want or buy one or the other, This is another one good. We are continuing to support and develop Stormworks. Literally, people were like, oh, this is the end of life announcement. They literally said that about this, as they said, we are continuing to support and develop Stormworks. We have managed to develop the new game in parallel with Stormworks for the last 5 years. What this statement's telling you is, for the last 5 years, every update they've made to Stormworks has been while they have also been working on another game. So the fear you might have that they're just going to stop playing with Stormworks and go right to the new game, I would actually say it's probably quite the opposite. I think stormworks has the opportunity to get more love now, that instead of building a game from the ground up, they can manage to add updates to both games. It makes more of an opportunity to get more updates for stormworks, not less. And that will continue. Expect more updates for stormworks into the future as normal. So right now, as normal is every month we've been getting new parts that people have been asking for in Q&As and on the feature request. And I think the subtext of this is expect that we'll get more parts, more things like the new folders we get, stackable nodes. We've been getting some really good updates, and that's going to continue into the future as normal. New game is a vehicle building survival game. The vehicle building is very different. It is more detailed, which I really think is cool. More involved, which is also cool. These kind of make me more interested in the game. My fear was that they would go less detail, less involved, and that would make it so it's more like a... I haven't played it, but this is what I've heard Brick Rigs is like. You put an engine on a build and it runs. I know Space Engineers like that. You put a battery or a fuel tank on a build, and you put an engine, and it runs. You put a seat on a build, it runs the engines. And so the fear I had, which would make me not interested in the new game, is if it was less detailed and less involved. And as they say, it is more detailed and more involved. Again, I'm not going to sit here and speculate all day, but there could be some cool things like actually having to program gear ratios, build transmissions, and instead of stormworks where you have to take like a bunch of gearboxes and you have to work the transmission like that, maybe it's a transmission block you click on, but you have to set the ratios. You know, maybe the dashes have more detailing. You know, stuff like that's really cool. And so I'm glad it's going to be more detailed than stormworks, because the detail is what I love about it, and more involved. Better for small vehicles and worse for huge ones. I love this line. Stormworks is intended to go up to 50-meter vehicles. That's it. And of course, the first thing a lot of people do is they put in a XML edited workbench. They build things that are bigger than what's ever been intended in stormworks. And then they complain that there's lag. And so I like that they put this in there, that it tells you how it's going to work. You know, it's going to work good for small vehicles, better than stormworks even, and worse for huge ones. And it's telling you this is meant to be smaller vehicles. And so you want to go play with huge vehicles, go play stormworks. You want to play with small vehicles, this one might be a little bit more rewarding. And so, you know, that's I think good to set expectations. I don't like doing this too much where you look at the picture and you try to divine a bunch of bullshit, but we'll do it a little bit like, you know, we don't have pictures of the dash. This does look like equipment in the back. We've got a little fuel tank off here. I don't know if it's just decorative or not, but one thing that would be cool is can we like pick this up and pour fuel into our tank? If you notice here, the pipes, so this is some stuff that's really interesting. Look at the pipes. We have angled pipes. You know, we've been asking for angled pipes. There's angled pipes in here. We got small pipes that somebody's using as a bumper here. It looks like they're extrudable. So people have talked about that where you like drag it to different distances. If you look at this, this is a corner pipe and it looks like it's been dragged. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's a guess. But that's really cool. Look at how thin this wall is on this truck here. Look at the detailing here of, you can put a, like if you look at the wall sections, there's a wall section here. There's a wall section here. Looks like there's a wall section here. And it looks like they have extrudable parts where you can pull the parts. So that looks like a 1x1 wedge. That looks like a section there and a section there. You can make fenders. That's really cool, unless they're pre-made parts. So I would say it's probably extrudable building if I was to guess. Kind of gameplay-wise, look up here. We've got grass, right? We have no grass in stormworks. We have grass in here. That's cool. That adds a little bit more detail. That's a really neat feature. We have some cool trees up here. These look like, I forget the type of pine those are. If we look at the buildings look like they have similar construction to this main vehicle. And as they talk about, it's better for small vehicles. It sounds like small vehicles are going to be a big part of the game. And we have this small vehicle in our view here. And I just talked about the extruded walls. Well, look at these houses, too. The roof line, maybe, maybe not. We can build some houses and stuff and stationary objects. But they also look like they're built within that. Here, let's do a quick zoom in. I won't talk about this for too long, but I think it is something cool to talk about. I'll read chat. I see chat going. All right, so let's look at some more interesting stuff, right? Some people have been complaining about they didn't like the art style of Stormworks. And so whether you like it or not, this has a different art style, which I think is kind of cool. I think different is good, right? You might not like it, but it's you now have an option. So like, look, the character mesh here, we have more of a detailed face. The clothing is less polygons, and it's got more detail there. You know, you actually have some digits on there. It's kind of cool. All right, so that's a kind of a cool feature there. Let's look. I'm trying to see. As we were talking about, you can actually see physical grass out here. That's really neat. This interests me here. If you look, we have what looks like logs. Right, so one thing that would be really cool, right, is let's say there's a mission. You need to move 100 logs from point A to point B, from the logging camp to the lumber mill. All right, and so you've got these logs. Well, that means forklifts and cranes and all sorts of small vehicles to load a truck to then drive over and then unload. That's cool. These look like crates that might be used for transpo. But again, I'm not going to dissect this forever. Again, we got the thing tomorrow. It's one reason I wouldn't make a video on it anyways. It's just like, we're going to hear about it tomorrow. You know, I'm not interested in getting the views and the clicks for stupid bullshit. I don't need it. But, you know, I think that's going to be cool tomorrow, and I'm very excited to see it. And there's no point in me speculating too much. It's fun to speculate a little bit, but, you know, we'll see it tomorrow. Now, let me catch up on chat. How's it going, Rasmus? I think I said ID. I can't remember. I must have. Yeah, I did say hi to Rasmus. You know, so anyways, I got kind of Sarge's comment about turbos. It wouldn't surprise me that once this game is out and they do the kind of the initial bug fixing and things are kind of stable, they're going to do new updates they're going to do updates for new game. They're going to do updates for this game. And some people said, oh, Stormworks is going to get fewer updates. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think, imagine if you had a huge project that you had a deadline for, and you finally got that huge project done. You've got more free time now, right? So they've got more free time, so they can, and they've already told us they're going to continue the normal updates, which at this point are monthly, which is fine with me. They've had some great updates. And so you could see a world where they have a monthly update for Stormworks and a monthly update for new game. And I think it frees them up to do more because they don't have this big looming new game that they've been spending 5 years. You got to think of it from a business perspective. You've been putting money out into the world, spending money for the last 5 years. This is your time to now take some money back in. And so you want to get that game out in a good state so that you can start to recoup that investment. And now once the new game is out, they're recouping their investment. People are buying the new game. And some people said, oh, you know, they're going to stop abandon Stormworks despite, you know, them saying they're not. Well, again, if you're going to buy a new product from a company, you want to know that they are supporting the old product, right? And so the best thing from a business perspective for them to do is to continue to support Stormworks so that you know they're going to continue to support the new game too. And so that's the smartest thing for them to do. And what I think they'll do is they'll keep putting out updates for Stormworks. And, you know, that will tell you that, hey, they've been supporting Stormworks for 10 years. The new game, they're probably going to support for 10 years as long as people buy it and play it and keep the community alive. And so you know that, they're going to be there for the long term. And I think that's important from a business perspective. All right, so it wouldn't surprise me if we do get turbos at some point. Yeah, I think that would be great, Sergeant. That's something I would really like to see is you could do hydraulics and pneumatics with the same part. That'd be fantastic. Sounds good, Alistair. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's what it sounds like, Sergeant. It does sound like to be more in depth, and so I could see some cool stuff like moving. I think we're gonna have rotating steering wheels, maybe. I think we're gonna have like moving gear lifts, handles. I'm gonna look at the picture real quick. I'm gonna just zoom in, like the door handle. Here, I'll bring the picture back up so you guys can see it. This is another thing people have been asking for is like, I think Alistair always talks about this too, is like the ability to have manual parts. So like you would have a door handle and you press on it and it looks like a door handle and it opens the door. Or it sends a Boolean so it opens the door, right? That's like you see a door handle on here. So it's not some big square red button, right, like we have in Stormworks, which I think is fine, but I think it can be garish sometimes. And it's not like, okay, I did a panel there and I put on an arrow. No, it's an actual door handle on there. So I think that's another cool thing that is going to be in the new game. So I think that's part of the more detailed. Not judging by that photo because... Yeah, I think the difference, though, Alistair, with that, so Alistair's comments, essentially, I'm not trusting, or I'm not, I want to put it, I'm not judging by that photo. I want to get the term, the verbiage right. His comments, I'm not judging by that photo because much like Stormworks, the main intro screen thing on the stream isn't even including real things in the Stormworks. I think the difference, I would agree with that, is like, again, you can't judge it by its initial picture, but I think there's a different, it's a little bit different, and this is why. Let's bring up the, let's see if I can find it. So like if we bring up the picture of Stormworks, I think there's a little bit of a difference here. And the main thing is Stormworks was started as a, what the hell's the term? Early access. And this new game, they haven't said it's early access. I think it's supposed to be fully released. And the difference is, they had very little of any of this. I don't know when the actual picture from Stormworks came out. So, like, they put some art together, things they thought they might put in the game. But it's early access, and of course, you don't always end up where you thought you were going to be. So things like, they were like, hey, let's put in a, what do we want? Well, we want winches, and we want hoses, and we want nozzles. Okay, so we have winches, hoses, and nozzles, but yes, they don't look like this. And so in an early access game, they say, hey, we want to put winches, hoses, nozzles. We want to have rotors. We want to have wheels. We want to have pistons. We like this wheel's not in game. This is not. That could be just that could just be visual. But like, say that's not in game. That nozzle you can make with pivots. Trying to find other things that we don't have in game. But like, so this is the big one here, like this wheel we don't have in game. Okay. And so when they put out this thing, it was early access. They hadn't finished the game yet. So they might have had all intentions to put something in like this, and then it just didn't work out, or they didn't get to it, or they thought there were more important things to do at the time. Like we have these coaster wheels. Those are in game pretty much as they are. This, yes, this is absolutely different looking. They may have thought, hey, you know what? We're going to put in physicalized hoses of different diameters that actually interact and touch stuff. And they realized, oh, my God, this is causing a shitload of lag. And so your options are this. Do we say, do we give the people exactly what was in the photo? Or do we say, you know what, that's going to have negative game impact, we're getting rid of that. This is going to have negative game impact, or we have other things we want to work for, let's not do that. And so I think that's more what probably happened. The difference I'd say with this, again, this is just my speculating, is this I think is supposed to be a fully released game. And so with that, you're probably, I think it's in a more finished state. They already have most of what they're going to put in there, and then they know they can probably add to it. But that would be my hypothesis. There's another thing I missed. I didn't know what this was. That's a backpack, so that's cool. People have been asking for backpacks in stormworks, so you can carry more shit. One of my favorite things to do when I played Arma Life mod was you would get a four-wheeler, and it was super cheap. It was like $400, right? And you would go ride the four-wheeler, and you would drive out to the apple orchard, and you'd sit your ass at the apple orchard as a new player. And again, Arma was it was a war game, and they made it a life mod for it. And you could go out and you'd drive your little four-wheeler out to the apple orchard, and you would stand there under an apple tree with a backpack on, and you would press interact, and a little text box would pop up and say apple picked. All right, so you'd have apple picked, and you would fill up your backpack with apples, and then you would walk your silly ass back to your four-wheeler, and you would empty all your apples into the internal storage of your four-wheeler, and you'd walk your ass back, and you would fill your backpack, and that's how you started the game making money. And then you would turn your ass around and drive back, and you'd sell your apples, and then you could buy a pickup truck, and you'd go take your pickup truck, and you would drive your ass out and, you know, go get coal. And you drive out to the coal field, and you'd sit there and you just pick coal. And then you'd drive back and you would sell. And so, you know, that was kind of a long diatribe for kind of reminiscent on that. But the backpack is something people have been asking for, because you could see where it has something like that, where there's mining or picking or some sort of resource gathering that you can do in this new world. And then that would be a great way to go make money early. You drive off in your little vehicle, you go pick some apples or get some gold or pick rocks or whatever the hell. You can see it as missions. I would say this game is going to be a lot more focused on missions, just because, you know, I think that was something lacking in Stormworks, and I think this game's probably a little bit more attuned to that, where you can see, like I was saying, you know, go move logs from A to B, go down to the farm and pick up 10 hams and bring the hams over to the grocery store. I think that could be really cool, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm going to catch up on chat and we'll get back to Stormworks. Yeah, possible it's not voxel based. Yeah, and that's kind of the new. That's the kind of the new thing, is everything's in alpha as far as I'm concerned. And like when people nitpick that, saying that, oh, you know, they don't release finished games anymore, I'll put on my old man hat. You know, I was born in the '80s, and you know, we used to go and buy games for $50. You know, $50 for a PC game in the '80s, and you get home and you got the pleasure of a finished game, quote unquote finished game, and it was just as buggy and just as much of a pain in the ass as games are today. But guess what? You never once ever got an update. Not once ever. That was going to be the game for the rest of time. And so, you know, if you had any game breaking bugs, guess what? That was it. You get to play with them. That's all you got. So it was a trade-off. Yes, games are always still works in progress. I think that's a net positive. I think that's a great thing. I don't think that's negative at all, because it could be the other way, how it used to be, where game came out, game never got ever updated, because, like, how are they going to do it? Like, we didn't even have the internet. You know, you put CDs in a CD-ROM, or you put floppy disks in a floppy disk drive, and your game literally never got an update. If it had a game-breaking bug, that's That's what it had for the rest of the time you played it. And so the trade-off is, yes, you get games that sometimes are not released in finished states, but you also have that opportunity for them to come back and work on them. So I think it's a net positive, kind of this open alpha design. All right, so I did decrease the rotor RPS. I decreased the gear ratio. We do have to watch out for two things, so we're going to do some testing on the way out here. All right, we're gonna try running on one engine. I've decreased the gear ratio, so the load on the engines should be a lot less. And so when I go to raise the collective, as you can see it going up, let me turn on the autopilot here. All right, now we can fly because the rotors have less load on them. So I'm flying on one engine. You can see one engine, one engine, one engine. And so this one's gaining temp, that one's not. So this is a feature I like to put in some of my builds that have multiple engines like this, because this saves you a lot of fuel. And, you know, so that's helpful, especially when you're starting. And this is also faster with the lower gear ratio because it's less, less load. Because that's one way you get greater efficiencies is you increase the load. I'm gonna get rid of the fog, or I'm gonna decrease the fog because it's just kind of miserable for everybody to watch the video and can't see shit. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go to here. And we'll look out for this rescue. I'll try to read some chat. I gotta also look out for this rescue. Yeah, I get mugged. Yeah, I think there's definitely, there was some more polish because they had to be more polished. I think, you know, the companies, of course, do take advantage of that fact that, oh, we can always go back and update it. You know, it's a double-edged sword, but I definitely prefer this model to the old model. All right, so we have our waypoint. We're 0.2 from it. Now, it's going to auto-hover there. I don't want it to, so I'm going to change my waypoint. We're searching the area here for this rescue. That's an important test, what I just did. We're on one engine again, right? One engine. That's an important test. This test I just did there, where I had a 100-foot set, and I just made it do like a 90-degree turn. That was an important test because what will happen, right, is you're going to be using the yaw component of the rotors. Now, with a transverse helicopter like this, transverse meaning the rotors are on the left and right side. Tandem is forward back. On a transverse, the left side pitches forward while the right side pitches back to yaw you to the right like we just did. That adds load on the engine, right? That adds stress on the engine. It tries to slow the engine down. And then you're changing your component of lift, and so you're now trying to both keep your altitude and turn at the same time, so your collective also needs to come up. And so we were doing pitch and collective at the same time, and roll. So we're using all three components of the rotors at the same time, and it handled it fine. And so that was important, and it also maintained altitude. And so that's very important because what could have happened was we crashed. And that will happen if your engine's not strong enough, because as you put all that extra load, that excessive load on the engine, it's going to slow the engine down, and now your blades aren't moving fast enough to maintain altitude and you crash in the ocean. So that was an important test to make sure that we still have enough power with 16 cylinders. Because originally this was going to be 2 8-cylinders, and now I can ride around with 16 cylinders and be fine. Alright, what are we looking for here again? Black and white boat has gone missing. I know this one's sometimes up against the shore. How are you guys liking the fog? I can turn it down or leave it where it is. Fog's kind of annoying to me at the moment. I'll just knock it down. I don't think it's adding anything. I don't think it's adding anything. It's just being obnoxious is all it is. All right, so what I'm gonna do is kick off nav. I want it to maintain altitude. And I'm gonna start bringing my nose up, and I'm gonna start bringing my collective down. This is how you slow down this helicopter in real helicopters. You bring the pitch up, which changes the thrust vector, and you will decrease the collective because the pitch up is gonna make you gain altitude. The decrease in collective is gonna make you, it's gonna decrease lift. So as you pitch the nose up, you're gonna climb. As you decrease the collective, you're gonna descend, and so it counteracts it. And that's all you do to slow down this helicopter because the rotors tilt. Just pick the nose up and put down a little bit of down collective and you're good. All right, so now we've got the rescue, right? So let's go ahead and we're gonna put a waypoint right on top of it. And we're gonna see if we can keep dry. I'm gonna put that in. We're gonna go back to nav. Alright, see if we're right over it. Okay, let's see if we can stay dry here. Alright, 100 feet's where we're gonna stay. We're gonna, I never close my side hatches, but they're good there. Alright, we're gonna open up the bottom. I'm gonna lower this down until it's sitting in there. Alright, so if it gets stuck, real simple. You raise it back up. And this is why I do it this way, is this makes it pretty easy. Alright, so now that the harness is in the hole, that's when you jump in the hole. And you won't get stuck. It's a pain in the ass trying to jump your ass in there from the harness. Cap, if you want a rotor brake, you can always attach a modular clutch. I don't have the parts. I'm sorry, I don't have the space. I was gonna do something like that, Sergeant. The wheel's the easiest. I was gonna do the flywheel and the clutch, but the problem is I can't route my torque back to the back because where I have the winches. I originally had it routed into the tail, but I don't have the space, so I'm just doing one of the gearboxes will go backwards, and it works as a pretty good rotor brake. All right, I actually don't want to glitch into the roof, so I'm going to go right here. All right, let's take a picture. All right. I'm gonna grab this Johnny here. He goes in there. Hi, yeah, we're gonna have to get wet. All right, we're gonna feed this guy some good health. I think it was 2, right? 2. I'm gonna unpause it too so we can keep moving here. Trying to think of cool angles to take pictures at. Wish I could get my camera back more, but I can't. All right. But that's kind of the benefit of this particular vehicle, is that it can take 3 at once. Kind of its claim to fame is it takes, or it takes 2 rescues and me. Most of my other ones do me and somebody else, so. Alright, so this is the first time I've done a rescue with this, so we want to make sure that they clear the tires. So this is why it was kind of a pain in the ass getting the new back doors in and getting them working right. It's one of the reasons why the winches slow down when we get the top. Alright, good. So, got to kind of do an order of operations here. Close the door below me. That closes. Get out of my harness. Alright, I got to grab these Johnnies first. Alright, so you notice that they did not attach, and that's because the winch is still going up. Once I click the winch back to off, they grab the doors. Once they grab the doors, that's the wrong door, they stow nicely. Okay, you hear that noise? That's bad noise. We gotta fix that. That was, that's overheat protection. So we're currently overheating shit. Okay, fuck. Alright. That's not good. Alright. I shouldn't be testing in my career game. That's not really a smart thing to be doing. What happened there was I ran on one engine as a test. It overheated with one engine. And it goes into overheat protection system so we don't have a fire. And it killed the power. And so we had decreased power. Because the engine stutters, and then we ended up crashing. So it still has a problem with overheating with this gear ratio with one engine running. 2 engines running, it should be fine. So that sucks. All right. I should not have done it. I'm not going to do these tests in my career game. It's just too risky. Yeah, I'll show you here real quick, Sergeant. I got to bring this back on the bench anyway. But if you look, this is the torque line right here, and the torque line used to go to the back. But if you look right here, that's where my winch is. And so I can't go through any of these 3 blocks here, and I can't go along the side here. And I thought about going down through the floor, but then I hit blocks here. And I can't go around the door because of this block here. So I said, screw it, I don't care enough about it to do it. And then like right here, I might be able to do it here actually, Sergeant. I just put it off. I put it in the back burner. I might be able to do it. You know, see, that's the problem there. Yeah, see, I figured this all out, and it's not going to work. Because the issue is, see, this is a 4-banger. This is a 4-banger, so it can't go along the wall there. And then it can't go here because that blocks. So it's just, I have no path to get to the tail with a pipe unless I go through the cabin, and I don't want to do that. Like, I could try to hide it along. Like, I can't go over the top here. It's just, I just can't get it down where I would want it. It would ruin parts that I already have looking the way I want to look. But, I could do the goofy shit that I don't like doing. I like these radiators. I like the look of these radiators. I could put stupid fans in there. I'm not going to do that. For cooling. It should be, you should run it on 2 engines, frankly. I could try upping the gear ratios a little bit. So right now it's 6.1s. Now 5.2 is where I was at. It doesn't have enough power to run with 5.2s. But it stayed cool, so I'll do testing with that later. I'm not going to test in my career game. Let's see, where are we at here? Let's go back. I'm just gonna teleport real quick. I want to see if these dudes are still alive. If they're still alive, we'll go do the mission. I don't know where we crashed, and I don't know what happened to them. Yeah, we'll call this a lost mission here. Again, I shouldn't be doing these tests in my career game. That's what the custom game's for. So, we'll just skip this mission. That's just something I need to keep in mind, that I can't be doing that. Alright, let's go Sleepy, get another mission. I want to play with some other builds, too. Trying to get rid of this fucking flashlight. I don't like the flashlight sitting in my hand. Oh my Jesus, if I fall off this one more time, I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. Oh, I have override time on. Let's shut that off. That's good. Orange fishing boat requires servicing at the Keys Road Bridge. Let's see what that looks like. All right, it's right there. It is $2 grand. That's a refuel mission. Let's go do that. Let's find a vehicle we haven't used in a bit. I like going back to old vehicles and playing with them. Let's do this real quick. I want to make sure I fixed everything on this. Okay, yep, I saved that where it needed to be. No, this was a new vehicle I made. We could go, we could take it. We just need to transport our ass over to the other sides so that we can do this. This is a 1-cylinder. This is why I wanted to make this thing, was it's a 1-cylinder. The first 1-cylinder I've been able to make that's compact because of the node stacking. Yeah, I'm excited about the new game tomorrow, and I'm excited it's not replacing Stormworks either. Like, would it be great to have a new Stormworks that has, like, grass and some of the other shit that this new game has? Sure, I think, Alright, so let's say you want a new Stormworks 2. This is how you get a new Stormworks 2. Alright. You support the developer so they continue to have the money to be able to continue to produce products, right? Pretty simple there. You shouldn't buy anything you don't want to buy. I'm going to buy the new game, period, because, again, it's little money to me. You know, gaming is very cheap. I bet you I spent more on my salad the other day than I spent more on my salad the other day than I did on Stormworks. Let's put it that way. Most dinners I spend money on are more expensive than everything I've spent on Stormworks. And so I'm going to buy it regardless, because even if I get an hour's fun out of it, it's worth my money. I understand other people, that's not the case. That's fine. But also, I think I'm going to like the new game. And if you do like the new game, or you think you're going to like the new game, and you buy it and you enjoy it, that's the best way to get a Stormworks 2. Because what's going to happen is the developer gets more money. The new game likely is going to have new things. Like you already saw, it has grass. It has a different build style. And now you have two building games next to each other. And the devs can kind of see what people are liking and not liking with these with the new game, and what they like with stormworks. And then if you want a new stormworks, you know, people are going to say things like, hey, oh, it'd be great if stormworks had the grass that this new place had. Oh, we can cut down trees in the new game. Again, this is all speculation. It would be great if we could cut down trees in stormworks. And so if you kind of think about how they've done the development here, right? So they had stormworks have been out for what? Did I say 10 years? Somebody said 10 years. I'd have to look. 18, yeah, so not quite 10 years, 8 years. And they've been working on the last game for 5 years. All right, so would it surprise you if they start working on another game for the next 5 years, right? That's how businesses have to do. They have to keep building, and they have to keep coming up with new products. They're not going to sit on their ass for long and not build anything, right? They can't as a business. And so what's likely to happen, if I were to guess, is they're going to also start tinkering and thinking, what are we doing next? And that's important, right? What comes next? And it would surprise me if a next is Stormworks 2. But I don't think they're going to announce it anytime soon. And I think, you know, if they get the new game to a point where it's better in multiplayer, it's less laggy, there's more vegetation, they realize that, you know what, Stormworks, we've got this, I wouldn't say there's a big map, but, like, it's got a lot of real estate that doesn't really get used much. You say, hey, could we make one either more optimized, or if it was half the size map, but more detailed builds? Are people liking the new higher level of detail in the new game for building? Is it too much detail where people are getting confused and it's off-putting and the floor is too high and new players are struggling? And so then they can have this comparison point between the two games and kind of come up with a, hey, we want to build a Stormworks 2 or we don't. And that's, I think, the best way to do it is you get a company that still has revenue. They have new revenue. And then now at this point, let's say it takes another 5 years to come up with Stormworks 2, actual Stormworks 2. Well, Stormworks has been out for 13 years. And so, bingo, now you have a game that really is about time to be replaced using the new tech of the new game plus new tech beyond that. I think that would be a good path for them. Because a big part of it, too, is, right, why do we see all these garbage sequel movies? Why do they keep putting out garbage Marvel movies? Because it's a franchise that it's a known entity. People like Stormworks, and you come up with a Stormworks 2, well, that means you already have a big customer base who would buy it. Add what feature there, Rasmus? I talked a lot of bullshit, so I don't know which feature you're talking about. But, you know, that would be my prediction as far as if the new game's successful, which I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. I think it's going to be a good game. That's when I think you would have a Stormworks 2. And there's a good reason why I don't think they went right to a Stormworks 2. You know, if your two IPs are Stormworks and Stormworks 2, as soon as Stormworks 2 comes out, you're not going to get a lot of people who buy Stormworks 1. Even if it was $2, you're not going to get a lot of people who are going to go back and buy Stormworks 1 if it's if there's a Stormworks 2 to buy, right? They're going to buy the new, better thing, right? So right off the bat, you lose your revenue source from any new Stormworks purchases. And if you want to do new Stormworks DLC, you lose all that, right? That's not going to happen. You have to come up with, you know, the new game. So you're essentially sunsetting the old game. And I think it's, frankly, too early to sunset Stormworks. And so you've got your other game, and then, you know, that diversifies gameplay. You can see, do people like this game? Okay, now you've got the same people buying the new game, giving you new revenue. Then you go and you do a Stormworks 2, and then the same people who are still playing Stormworks 1, they're like, oh, it's been 13 years. I'm ready for a new version of this game I love, and I'm also playing the other game. And then maybe they come up with a new third idea, or they just keep these two IPs going with updates. That's how, like, Farming Sim would do, you know. And so there's a precedent for how this works and how it makes smart, you know, business sense to do. And so I would think that's probably a smart path for them to kind of at least, you know, inquire about. Oh, I got you there, Rasmus. Okay, there's the boat. I just pretty much stopped streaming on Twitch too. Twitch was just an absolute pain in the ass. Like, half of the chat was filled with, not half the chat, but every chat was filled with multiple bots trying to sell me viewers, and for all of like one person to watch on Twitch. So I was finally like, screw this. And it was a bigger pain in the ass setting up the videos too. So I was like, I just had it with Twitch. That's power, huh? Oh, come on. Yeah, Rasmus makes a good point about backwards compatibility. Yeah, it would be good if you could do backwards compatibility with it. I can see it as being a double-edged sword. I would say, you know, part of this new building game with that new kind of what you're talking about, like maybe you drag the panels and you make custom panels. Yeah, I think you'd have to have some level of backwards compatibility with stormworks, but the downside of that is you then have to have all the same old parts, and yeah, I don't know how you'd make it work, you know. Then it puts a lot of limitations onto it. It's like, okay, the microcontrollers have to function in the same way. If they come up with a better way of doing microcontrollers, well, they can't do that because, people want the old way so that they can have backwards compatibility. So I can see it, but also I kind of see, like, Stormworks 1 doesn't die the day Stormworks 2 comes out, let's say, again, in 5 years from now. You want to play with the old builds, But, like, I played Kerbal Space Program. I had a lot of cool builds. And I would, it'd be great if they were backwards compatible. It really would be. But also, like, do I really give a shit when I'm in a new one and there's a lot of cool features, the building's better? I think if they improve the building in a Stormworks 2 game and you didn't have backwards compatibility, I don't think it's the end of the world because, yes, I miss my old builds, but I can make much better builds. And it's like, it's kind of, I would say it's the same as, like, me looking back at my first early builds and being like, oh, if I can't play with those old builds, I'm going to be sour. Where at this point, like, I don't use those old builds because my new builds are so much better. And if I got the new Stormworks and I couldn't bring in any of my old stuff, but the UI was better, the microcontrollers were better, the building system was better. Like, say, for example, we could do smaller blocks so we can do facades and we can stack, and the optimization's better. And I have to go back and rewrite a bunch of microcontrollers, I don't think that's the end of the world either. So, yeah, tool would be kind of interesting. Like, the actual hulls, like, the only thing I would lament losing is the logic. Like, I can figure out the new logic. I'm Hello. Can you guys still hear me? Yeah, I think I lost audio of the game. Game's been doing that. It could be an audio driver issue. Just lost the audio of the game. Is the audio playing for you guys? Let me know if the game audio is playing for you guys. Some audio just went out. The game audio went out in my ears. I'd actually be interested if you guys are getting the game audio and I'm not. So if you guys could report to me on that, I'd appreciate that. That would help me diagnose this problem. Okay, you hear the game and I don't. Okay, so that's a driver issue likely on my end. All right. So I've been having this issue where the game volume doesn't come in. So like it just cut out on me. That's why when I said hello, hello, I didn't know if it was crashing, if I lost you guys or what. So yeah, that's something on my end because the game is functioning fine. I'm not hearing it. I can see on OBS that the game audio was going, so that's interesting. I'll have to figure that out. I'll do a quick reboot of the game and that should fix it. My phone update again. It's got all my stock updates are different now. Every time, it's like every couple days, Google decides to change. Google decides to change like how my phone does stuff, and I'm like, what is this new like stock ticker on the top of my phone? Okay, the sound just came back. Interesting. Alright, I'm glad the sound came back. I wonder what does that. But it's funny, you know, you guys could hear it. OBS is still picking it up, but it was just me. Could be my headset even. Yeah, I've got no interest in AI. I think like the one like minimal use case is like that interests me at all is like the ability to help with like some Lua coding, so I don't have to learn it all, and then I can kind of like, and I'm interested in it. So like because I'm interested in it, I can kind of see like, oh, it does this. Okay, I understand now what it's doing. Okay, then I can do it myself later. But like I also get like some people have no interest in coding. I have limited interest in coding, where you could be like, hey, you know, I want to do this in Lua code, and people can make some cool shit. I think you know AI is a problem. It's going to be a problem. You know, people are going to lose a lot of their just critical thinking skills too. They're going to have a lot of dumb shits walking around too with always relying on AI. All right. All right, we're going to go do this one. We're going to do this one with the helicopter. And so I'm going to use both engines. I think the use case for using one engine is pretty slim. I do it on Night Owl because it's jet turbine. And the issue with that is that it burns a lot of fuel and it's expensive. So one thing you can do to save some fuel is shut an engine down. And so that's beneficial. You know, with this, it's so fuel efficient anyway. It's not really, there's not much reason to shut an engine down. And it's good for safety. Let's say an engine broke or something. Just trying to see what my keys are. So, like, it would be good for, let's say one of my engines dies. I still can get back to a safe landing area on one engine and not overheat. So that's a good reason to have one engine. So it can operate on one engine, but like the downside is you can't operate on one engine too long or you'll overheat. So. One of the helicopters I was thinking of building for Alistair's challenge was going to be enormous, and I'm so glad I didn't do that because, oh, it'd be a lot of work. Like, we had a blizzard, so I spent 2 days at work just sitting in the hotel playing stormworks, and it still would have like been a nightmare to get that huge build. It was going to be a tandem, and it was very big, and it was going to have vehicles in it, and God, it would have just been like exponentially more work to do. All right, so we're going to run with both engines this time. Go do this rescue. Now, I should shut these doors before we depart. That door should be hot bust, so it's not hot bust. I need to fix that. That's the ground power button, so if I wanted to do ground power, I could do that. So the rotor brake, you cannot, I gotta fix it on this button too. I think I might have. You can't put on the rotor brake if you're in the air, period. So you have to be on the ground. The engines have to both be shut down to put on the rotor brake. So you can flip this button all the live long day, nothing happens in the air. And it won't do anything until we shut down the engines. So don't have to worry about, I'm going the wrong way. Don't have to worry about that at all. Might hand fly for a little bit. This is where people get bored, is they do everything with autopilot and they're like, I'm bored. Yeah, of course you're bored. You're a passenger. You're not a operator anymore. Like, you know, some of the most rewarding jobs in life are operating vehicles because you're engaged the whole time. And that high level of engagement is rewarding and interesting and fun. And sitting there and just like letting it do it for you is not. So it's one way if you're like getting bored, try doing it yourself a little bit. Like you'll have a better time. Something going off right here. There it is. I found it already. It's right here. See it? Right there, flashing lights. All right, so I found it. It's right here off of this island. All right, we're gonna go down. Did Nav take? Nav took, I think. Yeah, I gotta see if Nav took. I've gotta make it so that when I press the button, the light comes on. I still have to work on that. I haven't got that done yet. So the problem is, if we're within point, I gotta look where I set it. If we're within 0.1 nautical miles of it, it is going to, it locks in the last known heading for the bearing. And so it locked in the last known heading. Now, as you can see, it's going to turn to where it's going. And so it's doing this all itself. It's station keeping. Now when it gets close, what it's going to do is it's going to use the last bearing too. And it's going to hold that last bearing. And like I said before, if you were watching, if the wind is up, that's when it's going to face the wind. So like right now, you see it's not facing the wind. It's because it's not windy enough. All right, we're gonna reset the. Oh, stop it! I gotta turn that off so I don't accidentally grab the vehicle. Okay, there we go. Gonna get right over the top of it. All right, so now these engines should never overheat. I gotta double check with 6s. I was using the higher gear ratios because that was making it so it never overheated. I gotta check with this. I think this one doesn't overheat either, but I can't remember. All right, that one was not attached. Does the heli have an APU on it, or do you just do ground power? Just ground power. That got on. I was like, where did that end up? That's why. So this was a big thing in what I wanted in this. You know, I always try to improve when I make new vehicles, and so one of the improvements of this vehicle is it was kind of annoying to me, some of my other rescue vehicles, that you had the harnesses outside blowing in the wind, getting all kicked around, and so I really wanted a feature of this one to have them stowed inside, nice and neat. You know, like when I flew the little jet, the little 6-seat jet, we didn't have an APU, and we didn't have pneumatic engine start either. We had electric engine start, and so you would just it didn't use up that much electricity because it didn't have that many systems in it, and so you would pretty much shut it down when you weren't using it, and then you would do an electric start of the engines. And then once the engine was up and running, the engine-driven generator was going. So once you got one engine started, it was good. Like, in airline operations, like in the jet that I fly now, we have an APU, and so, like, what we'll do is we turn on the... Like, we'll taxi in, and once we have 2 minutes since we've landed, we shut off one of the engines to save fuel. We taxi in on one engine. As we get close to the gate, we turn on the APU. And then once we get to the gate, we shut off the engine. So now the power is on the APU. And then once the ground crew attaches the electric, we go to ground power and we shut off the APU. So we don't need any fuel. So it makes sense from an airline perspective because, like, our APU burns 260 pounds per hour. So you think of that cost of how much jet fuel you'd be burning, plus all the the particulate and everything else you're putting out there for no good reason. And so something small, something small that doesn't sit around very often. You don't really need it. Tiny little plane that we were flying there. Also, like, you don't have to worry about air conditioning too much. It's small. It's not going to heat up too much because it's small. You just open the door and it's going to keep cool. Like, you open the door on my plane, the overall area of the door is pretty small compared to how big the inside of the plane is. And so, like, you need the APU for air conditioning as well if you don't have the ground. Because they have a hose they can hook up. But, like, not every place has that, or it's not working, and so you definitely need that APU just for safety's sake, because, like, we can't board if it's too hot in the airplane. So if we go somewhere really hot and there's no ground power and there's no ground air conditioning, we need to run the APU so that we can keep the cabin cool enough to board and warm enough in the cold. We'll go up, check temperatures. Temperatures should be good. I did some testing where I went to that higher gear ratio. What is it? The 7.5 to 1. Where right now I decreased it to a 6 to 1. Again, we have no problem with fuel economy. This plane is just, this helicopter is super fuel efficient. But this is definitely helpful, like, even with this small rescue, like, if you've gotten late game where you're doing, like, 14 people sometimes you gotta rescue, that's where this is gonna become handy with the three total harnesses. Because I've had it before where, I've got my normal setup, I take one per trip up and down the cable. And so, like, this one, we'd have to do 3 trips. Instead, I cut it down to 1. This really helps. Because you start getting into like, say it was 12, right? You'd have to do 12 trips if it was the other way, or you have to do 6 trips. So you're really cutting down by, you know, cutting the trips in half, so. And it gets tedious and monotonous going up and down, so definitely it's one of those things that it benefits to do the 3. And it also makes it like if I was doing this rescue, I could take a fast, you know, say this rescue is further away, but it was 2 people, I might take Chickadee. Because Chickadee is a lot faster. And so I saved the time by doing that. I'm gonna go turn on my lights here. Alright, I saved the time by taking Chickadee because the aircraft is faster. You know, but I'd have to maybe do more trips. So it's kind of nice to have that little variability so that each vehicle has a purpose, and I don't feel like, oh, this vehicle doesn't have a purpose anymore. Those are backwards, so they're not. These aren't perfect. I'm trying to wiggle them so that they'll come around and get them to align. That's the nice thing, is just make sure you don't grab the cable, but you can grab the connector and just wiggle that sucker, get it moving, and then hopefully it'll grab. I could also drop it and try to rotate it a little bit. There we go, that should grab. And I love the way those stow now. It's so good. All right, so we got to check our temperature. So our temperature's at 80. We do have to see if there's overheats. So I don't know why the right side's running so much cooler. No clue, but it is. We want to go all the way to Holt Town. There's no place for me to land up here. We can land on the road. Let's land on the road. Okay. Yeah, so this took me... I have literally never played with memory registers because they just like... I found them annoying when I first did them, and I was like, screw that, I don't need them. And so I finally started working memory registers on this. So what it's doing now is it's looking at this 81 and it's making this 81. That's all it's doing. So it's essentially locking in a heading on there of whatever the bearing is. The problem is this, is once you get close, and you're going to go right over the point, right? But then as soon as you go past the point, the aircraft wants to turn 180 degrees around and go backwards. And I don't want it to go backwards, right? And so then it's going to pass over the point again and go backwards. And it's eventually going to stop. And so what I did was once it gets close enough, it will lock in whatever the last bearing was, and it will strafe to get there. So let's say it says the last bearing is 81, it locks in 81, and even if it goes to 80, 79, it's still going to hold 80, 81. The other thing I always do with my heading holds is the heading is always takes precedence. And so say we had a mountain going in front of us, and oh my god, we got to go to, this is backwards, so I got to fix this. Well, let's say we need to go to 40 real quick, all right? If I put in 40 here, and I hit heading, it's always going to override the nav mode every time. And so that overrides the nav mode because that's more important. Then I shut heading back off, and so if we had to avoid a mountain, I can also oversteer the system. I can take over, and any of my inputs will add to the autopilot, so if we're going to hit something, I can quickly just steer around it. Where do I have this? Right there. And the reason why we went to the left is, for what I was saying, is it locked in the last bearing, which took us off course, which is fine. As you can see, it just strafed sideways and went back on course. And then we'll look and we'll say, okay, maybe an 87 heading will give us, again, like I said, this is backwards, but I gotta fix this. 87 heading will give us, not enough. Just turn that till we line up with the road. There we go. Put it on ground idle. Now, because this autopilot's on and 0, it's going to hold us on the ground. And then I put on ground idle, which is going to go ahead and make sure that we we don't have the power to even get off the ground if we wanted to. We're on this side. Got a picture here. This might be a cool picture. Where the fuck am I? Nah, I got too much shit on the top right now. Alright, let's, you're good on health, huh? Go like that, bang. I got a health pack coming. You donkeys. Donkey-ass donkeys, I'm telling you. Low. Alright, very nice. I'm gonna have to go around. Yeah, it's very nice with this build that it's diesel because this works better in early career. I did not realize how close that friggin' tree was to my rollerblades. That's nuts. That is way too close for comfort. All right. Let's get out of here before I hit that. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go flight idle. Go back to red lights. We can also dim the lights there if they're too bright for us. I kind of want to change the scenery. What are we doing for money? 95. I'm trying to keep us a little bit on the hairy edge of money. I'm thinking let's go buy North Harbor for 60. Let's do that. It's kind of fun to me to have new bases, so I want that. Alright, so I have heading mode on. I'm going to click that off. There we go. Now it's turn. Is it turning? Okay, it's still on. There we go. Now it's on course now. I'm going to make these so that the HDG, nav, alt, and AP turn green. I just haven't got to that yet. That way I'll know what mode I'm in, but I've got to get to that. So these are not my gauges, and for the challenge I have to have all my own stuff. So I'm going to work on, I was kind of thinking what I wanted to do. And so one thought was to make a 1x2 PFD. Ideally, that's what I want to do. The problem is I would have to do a camera looking at a monitor to get it small enough. I think what's more reasonable is if I could either make a 1x3 and a 1x3, or I don't know, do we have 2x3s? If we have 2x3s, I will make one big panel like this. I gotta do a bunch of research to make an attitude indicator. I'm gonna make it like what's in my plane. Let me bring that up. So I like. So this is my PFD that's on my plane. And so you got a lot of good information here. You've got attitude indicator. This is your glide slope. I'm not going to put a glide slope in. That's your brick. That's telling you if you're coordinated or not. Pitch, roll. And then you've got, that just points to the autopilot. This is your altimeter over here. That's your ground level. This is your airspeed. That's your set airspeeds for your different V1, VR, V2, VT. That's your compass there. It's white if it's FMS. It's going to be green if it's going to be nav. I'm telling you course, all this. I don't need all of this, but here's your vertical speed. So I would want a speed tape, an altimeter, attitude indicator, compass, a VSI. I'm going to probably reverse engineer. I like Basilicious panels. I would like to square it up and make it square like this, change the colors. So I got to play with that, but you know, I think that'd be kind of cool to do. But that's what I want to make. So I'm thinking doing this will take up a lot of real estate. So I'm thinking like this will take up probably, because like if we look at how this is about as small as I can get the numbers if I don't use a camera looking at a monitor. And so if you kind of look, if that's attitude indicator, my altimeter speed tape needs to be on this panel on the sides here, like that. And then that shows the compass can be in the bottom, fine. Airspeed is going to be up here in the corner, like there. So an airspeed tape would have to be like this, and it has to be 3 digits. Problem with altitude is altitude needs to be able to be 5 digits. That's tough. You could change it to go to K. Where are we? Oh, okay, I see where we're at now. You could change it to go to K for like as soon as you get to 1,000 feet, it could switch to K, or you go up to a larger number. Like let's say, for example, you. Let's see. What was I saying? So I could do it where once it hits 10,000, because we gain an extra digit, it goes to K. I could do it where it goes to flight level. Once it goes to flight level, it gains an F, so it'd be flight level 330. So it'd be 4 digits. I've got to decide. Okay, there are 2x3s. I think 2x3s would be the best, and that would be the most versatile for what I'm trying to accomplish. Because I would love to get it in this form factor, but I'd 100% have to do a screen, and then I'd have to do. I would have to do a 4x2 essentially to get, and then do a screen to get it reduced, and then none of the touches are going to be in the right place, so I'd have to move them. Pixel by pixel to make the touches work where I want them. So it's just, that's too much bullshit, and I'm not that good enough at Lua, and I don't want to spend a million years on it. The hell are we? I'm trying to think where the fuck we are here. Okay, I didn't think we passed it, but some of this terrain, I'm like, I wasn't recognizing this bay. There's Holt Town right there. We are refining a bunch of diesel and jet fuel, if you shall remember. All right, so look at the temperature. The cooling system is never turned on, and we're at 76 degrees. So this right now with 2 engines running, we don't need cooling at all. With 1 engine, like we saw, we will overheat. We'll never catch on fire because the protection system prevents us from catching on fire. But yeah, we'll never overheat. And so, like, say if we lost an engine, if I shut an engine off, we would still be able to land safely. We just can't go operate for 30 minutes without any cooling, you know? Got 2 helicopters up there. I'm watching that. Their nonsense. I like the way this flies. This flies very naturally. I'm going to change where we're going here to... So you see how it's not turning, and that's because we're too close. So it's going to strafe once we get beam that point, likely. Is it? What's it doing? Why is it running past the point? Oh, I didn't hit enter, so that's why. I never took the new coordinates. So. Said no more tests during career, but we're gonna do one quick test. I gotta see what the memory register is doing because it did all right that time. That's fine. I'm gonna shut down an engine. It should clutch out. I want to make sure it clutches out. So it's not clutching out. That engine is dead. It's getting no fuel, but it is, you can see the temp is, no, why is the temp still rising? Fuel valve's off. That should be shut down. I don't know what's up with that. I gotta look at that. Oh, well, maybe, you know what I did? I might have made it so that you can't shut the fuel valves off in the air. That's what I did. Yeah, it's a safety feature. They don't shut off in the air. All right. And you see, I should have checked it. We'll see if this one shuts down on the ground now with that fuel valve off. That's a safety feature. All right. Why is that fuel valve not shutting the engine off? There it goes. All right, it's shutting it off now. No, it isn't. What's it doing? All right, that's shutting them down. So I think I have to. I might not have fixed the. I gotta put that in my notes. Check. Right. Engine. Fuel. Valve. Number. That's probably, it probably has the same number as the left side, so the left side's actually controlling whether it comes on. So we can test that real quick here. So we go fuel valve 2 on. That's running. Is it? Let's see if it stops. If it shuts all the way down, then turn the rotor brake. I can't. Okay, it's running. And it's down. Okay, I don't know what, it must have been my protection system while I'm in the air. So the rotor brake's on. The conditions for the rotor brake to shut off is, you have to have the fuel valves off, which can only be turned off when you're on the ground. So, see how they stopped, and they go backwards? That's what I've got now because of the, I'm just using the gearbox going backwards. Alright, let's see what all the good stuff is here. Komodo. So this would have to be loaded on a train. Arnold Quarry. This one could be fun. I've been over there. Could also do some coal over here, which would be fun. Komodo. Yeah, that rotor brake works all right. It's just making it so that one of the gearboxes goes backwards, so that it puts resistance on it. The other rotor's trying to turn it the opposite way. Just spy cakes. Spy cakes. That's good. We got some spy cakes here. We can take those at some point. That could give us some train fun. We're gonna finish up here in a sec. Maybe give my voice a break. The other reason I wanted this base was we can do some fishing here as well. So we got some train stuff. We can do some fishing. This gives us a base on this isle. Arnold Quarry is right here. That's Dean Hall. Never mind. Oh, Arnold Quarry's way the hell out here. That's Arnold. Yeah, that's a weird. We'd have to put them all 3 on a train to take them and then drive. And that could be kind of fun. Get a setup where we load trailers onto a train over there, unload them, and then drive them. That would be kind of fun. Here's where we sell coal over here, and we mine it at Dean Hall. So that could be fun. Do some mining here, driving off coal or training off coal. Could do some fishing. That'll be fun. But we'll go ahead and we'll buy this base. I'm going to save it. And then I think it's over here. And then we'll finish up. This is a fun episode. It's good to play with the new build. That's coming along really nicely. We still got a good bit of money. We got 36 grand plus whatever that costs, plus the oil derrick is out there. And at this point, we're pretty much printing money because we have the we have our oil rig mining. So one thing I'll be able to do with this helicopter, if I want to use it, or the other helicopter I built, which is more purpose-built for moving fuel, is I can do 4 drop tanks of jet fuel and then go sell it, or bring the diesel, sell the excess diesel I don't need. So a lot of things to do there. And really simple, like to make sure the drop tanks don't contaminate my main tank, all you do is you don't connect a fluid port to the hard point, and then fuel can't get there. But all right, guys, it was good stuff. Why am I still on display cap? Good seeing everybody. Good to see you guys. Thank you to Rowan for joining Captain's crew there. Appreciate that. Good to see Rasmus and Sargent and Rowan, and I'm going to go through everybody. Alistair, it was good to see you, Alistair. Last, good to see you. Good to see everybody. Thanks for hanging out. If you liked it, give it a like. If you're new and you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.